It's been a while. Hello, hello, and in this Blender tutorial, I just want to showcase how you can generate lines on your scene that you can export out and bring it into application for painting or processing. We're going to be exporting it out as a .svg, a vector file, so we can scale up and down without having any resolution loss. And the reason for that is if we just render it out as an image, and if we want to scale it down or scale it up, then we're kind of like losing resolution that way. So we'll be creating line work, we'll be exporting it as .svg. So I went ahead and created a whole scene here, very basic, just to showcase how we can create the lines. Now, depending on the versions of Blender you have, the hotkeys may be different. But in this case, I'm using Blender 2.7 controls. That's what I'm familiar with. So let's add a line collection into the scene. So I'll hit Shift A in the scene here. You can also bring up a search bar, space bar like this. You may have changed it to play, so there might be a specific hotkey for that. But either or, Shift A, grease pencil, and collection line art. It's going to take the whole collection and generate line art based on that. So I'll click on that. And like that, we have all our line work. Now, it'll be a little complicated because there's a lot of shading here, and I like to just judge my line work without shading. So what I'm going to do is click on the drop down menu here, go from studio to flat, and there we go. And now we can see there's some really neat things going on here where, depending on the distance of the camera, it gets thicker. We have a lot of options that we can play around with, and I invite you to try out the different options and see the effects that it happens, because there's a lot of things that are available that we can just figure out, or you can figure out together. So what we have here, the important option so far is the line thickness. Now this depends on what kind of style you're going for. We can go really thick or go really thin, and I'm on the camp of I like thinner lines, so I'm just gonna go maybe 10 or even 5. I'm just gonna hide that so we get those nice crisp lines. Now there's also edge types here, depending on if you have materials, if there are loose lines and loose materials, if there's things to intersect, intersections being this geo going through another geo. Will you have a line drawn here, so you can take that on and off to see the differences here. The contour around, depending on the crease threshold, it's kind of hard to see there right now, but if I go into, let's say, individual silhouette and play around with this, perhaps even silhouette, it's still kind of hard to see. I believe it happens with there's more objects on here. So let's just do that, add an object here just for demonstration and play around with the silhouette. And as you can see here, we have an effect showcasing what happens. Just like it eliminates lines, just a good way to fine-tune it. And when we delete an object, the lines will stay, so we'll just have to quickly toggle it on and off to refresh. So we can play around with that. Let's go back to contour, and you can see each individual contour is back. There's also geometry processing in terms of if you want a specific camera to look, only generate those lines. It's occlusion, which is basically like cutting through the object or ghosting it and seeing the interior. So if I click on this and cycle through, I can almost look inside, which is great for X-ray effects. So you can end it there. You can use this to kind of cycle inwards, and so you're only peering on the inside. Really great for tools like that. So I'll just bring this back to 0. Intersection, I haven't really used that much. Face mark filtering, you can mark edges. Chaining, this is like how the lines will work out. So there's a lot of options that we can play around with, and I invite you to take a look at other tutorials that people have done, mainly because they invest in these types of things, but this is just for a quick example of how you can get this. But the cool thing is, since this is acting as a grease pencil, we can actually go into the enhance or visual effects, and we can start manipulating the line itself. So if you want something more natural where there's more noise, we can add effect, and I believe I'm in the wrong one, sorry about that. Sorry, here within the modifiers, add modifier, we can select noise, You can see it's starting to distort this. Now, this is a little too much. We can lower the position and just like ever so slightly touch it like that. We can control the strength of it. This kind of fades in and out. The thickness of the noise. And this just adds more of that, oddly enough, humanistic touch to it. The imperfections are the perfections of the art, as I like to say. Alright, so once we have this all done, let's say we're absolutely happy with all this, and we want to export this out now. We can go into File, Export, and there should be an option to export grease pencil as .svg. We'll select that. Make sure we have selected, or we can do active or visible. Since I have the select, I can do that, but we can also just go to anything that's visible. We can choose to fill it or not. We leave this on for now, and let's just render it out here. So I'm just going to call this here. Let's go to here, new, and then a house. Export the SVG, and I've already opened up Affinity Designer because it imports SVGs. I believe Photoshop or Illustrator can do the same thing. So we go in here and we can import it inwards. I believe I can just use the drag and drop feature of this, and as I drag this in here, we have our house SVG. We can take a look and see all the kind of line works in here. So now you can go in and really select each line and manipulate it that way. Alright, well that's the tutorial. Thank you.